she's not reading. So last we have Jacob Guajardo. Okay, reading The First Time I Saw a Sex Toy.
I had not seen the Titanic, and all of my friends were talking about it. About the nude scene. Kate Winslet dropping her robe to reveal her pasty white posterior, and later displaying what other fourth graders my age were calling her boobies. My friends said that Jack and Rose had sex in the backseat of a car, and I can quite honestly say that I hadn't heard that word until that point in my life. Sex, I thought, what is that? I stayed with my grandparents in their mobile home a lot during the summer, and that summer we were staying at Hidden Hill in Harrison, Michigan. I had made friends with a boy who was also staying with his grandparents, and like boys often do, we casually wondered out loud to each other about this new concept of sex. What do you think it is? I asked him over a game of shuffleboard. Have you seen the movie Titanic? That movie again, I thought. I have to see that movie. No, I told him. Okay, he said, well, I think it has something to do with a lady's boobs and a guy's wiener. Being completely oblivious to any other kind of explanation, this is the one I believed for a while. I didn't ask my parents about it because when I would think about sex and boobies, even my own wiener, I would get this gut rot feeling like something was wrong about it. I tried to put it out of my mind as much as I could because it was confusing to think about. Not to mention, I was pretty sure that these thoughts were the thoughts that would pervert my mind and make me a deviant. I had learned about these thoughts in church. In the 6th grade, my best friend Jason took me into his mother's room and showed me what a dildo looked like. It was flesh-colored, probably 8 inches long, and wiggled. I remember thinking it was funny, but also I remember being intrigued and filled with wonder. Jason's mother was divorced, which is why she had a dildo, my other friends explained to me when I told them. I was surprised to find out that many of my peers even knew what a dildo was. I hadn't been aware that there was such a thing as sex toys. My new impression of sex, my knowledge of the subject, had increased only slightly when I started those wonderful years known as middle school. It was two people staying as far away from each other as they could, but being just close enough that the man could put his penis into the woman's vagina. I remember thinking that sex should not be fun and was to make babies only. When I found out that there were toys involved, though, my interest peaked. Toys are fun, I remember thinking. Maybe I had the wrong idea about sex. I am telling you this story of my sexual coming of age to tell you the story of my coming out as a homosexual. It was really difficult for me to even understand that I had a different sexual preference as a child, because I had no idea that there was more than one option. 5-year-old me until about 13-year-old me just assumed that I liked women. I wasn't a very sexualized child. A lot of my friends told me stories about their first time seeing boobs in their dad's Playboy magazines, or the time they saw their next-door neighbor undressing in her window and they had seen her, once again, boobs. My father didn't read Playboy, or if he did, he had enough sense. I had enough sense not to go snooping through his things to find them. Also, I didn't live next to any attractive teenage girls. I lived next to a very old couple. Their names were Phyllis and Les. I was a very obedient child, and to this day, I'm trying to figure out what my parents did to keep me in line. I didn't have any friends in high school because I was so scared of what my parents would do if they found out I'd gone to a high school party and had a beer. My father didn't drink, ever. I've never seen a drop of alcohol touch my father's lips. My mother, when she did drink, would be chastised by my father, so I grew up thinking it was bad. Maybe what I was even more afraid of was becoming a bad person. People who drank and smoked grew up to be bad people. This is not what I wanted for myself. When the topic of same-sex marriage was starting to get some media attention in the late 90s, that was something else to add to the list of things that would make you a bad person, being a gay. It all started in Jason's mother's room with that wobbly, flesh-colored dildo. I began to question my sexuality. I guess the more pressing matter was the fact that I was experiencing sexuality. Prior to that, it had been pretty boring down south for me. I didn't get turned on, the boys called it, when I saw a pair of boobs. When I finally saw Kate Winslet's boobs in Titanic, when I was in 7th grade, it did nothing for me. Leonardo DiCaprio, on the other hand, that guy was a total babe. A couple weeks later, visiting Jason's house again, he told me that not only did his mother have a dildo, but she also had a few porn DVDs. Before I know it, we'd taken one of his mother's pornos, another thing I was led to believe only middle-class divorcees had, and were watching it together in his bedroom. I had, in the weeks after the first dildo sighting, begun to more actively do what I know is called masturbating. At the time, I called it fun time. This fun time was usually followed by fervent and sometimes tearful prayers to Jesus to perhaps kill me before I became a full-fledged homosexual. I was not masturbating to thoughts of titties or pussy, a fairly new concept I'd been introduced to by another one of my friends, Brandon, but I was thinking about kissing my friend Jason and touching him on his wiener. It was all terrible I really thought there was something wrong with me. When I told Jason about my concerns because I thought maybe he'd experienced them too, he threatened to tell people, and so before I could, I told everyone that his mother had a dildo. Jason did not talk to me again until our senior year in high school when he finally came out and asked me how many men I'd slept with. The answer was 0, and his was upwards of 20. I became somewhat of a recluse after Jason and I stopped being friends. The people I was friends with were maybe what a screen director would call the socially awkward group, that sat at the lunch table farthest away from everybody else and kind of smelled bad. It wasn't what I wanted. These were not the people I wanted to be friends with. But they were who accepted me, with all my weird quirks and kinks. They were the first people I told that I was indeed gay. I dreamed of a better place, like most gay teens that grew up in a small town populated mostly by farmers and their sons. Sons who thought that anything that didn't like hunting, fishing, and sports was gay. I couldn't wait to get away and become the person I truly wanted to be. I did move away, and I did meet like-minded people who did not smell bad at all. They smelled good, and other people liked them. Plus, there weren't any lunch tables in college to make us feel inferior. I hope that eases your mind, because you were probably thinking that I never got away, and that what you're reading is a suicide letter. That is not the case. I've always meant to thank Jason for showing me his mother's dildo. He was the person who opened me up to sexuality. In a weird way, I owe him one. My sexual growth could have been severely stunted. I might not have come out of the closet and come to grips with my sexuality until much later in life. I could have ended up married to a woman and giving BJ's in a hotel room, telling my wife that I'd gone to the store and would be back shortly. So Jason, if you read this, your name has been changed for the purpose of this essay, but I thank you and hope you are doing well and have stopped sleeping around so much.